everyone, my name is Mishka and welcome back to my channel. In my previous videos, I've been asking you guys to leave me some questions in the comments or by sending me a DM on Instagram at mishkamas. Today I will be answering some of those questions that you've asked about PLAB, IELTS, and applying for the UKFP. Before we start, thank you to everyone for the kind comments and support that you've been giving this channel. I really appreciate it. I want to say thank you din sa mga kabatch ko as well as my fellow alumni for all the kind words that you've been sending to my inbox. You guys really have motivated me to continue working on this channel despite my work commitments, so thank you talaga. Okay, let's start on the first question. So for the first question, hello doc, I'm from India and I did my PMQ and completed my clerkship from the Philippines as well, and then came back to India. The medical council here already accepts clerkship as an internship since both were hands-on training and we rotated in different departments. I also have my permanent license as a doctor here in India. My question is, will clerkship be considered equivalent to internship while applying for GMC registration so that I can get into FY2 directly? I can't do internship back here again since I already have my permanent license, and if not, can I apply for FY1 jobs? So technically, the GMC will only let you apply for provisional registration and take up FY1 posts if you don't have postgraduate clinical experience. This can refer to a formal internship or any type of work or clinical attachment that you took after graduating. For those who aren't familiar with medical degrees in the Philippines, we basically study for a total of 4 years, with the first 3 years mostly being lectures with some practical skills and ward-based studies. Our final year in medical school is an entire year of clinical attachments where we rotate in different departments as clerks, hence the word clerkship. Since clerkship, aka the 4th and final year in medical school, is still technically before you graduate, this should not count as postgraduate clinical experience. When I applied for provisional registration, the GMC did not count my clerkship as postgraduate clinical experience, and this allowed me to apply for provisional registration and then later take on an FY1 post. So it's unlikely that your clerkship in the Philippines will be counted as an internship. However, this might change in the near future, so it's always good to check the GMC website for updates on this. But I should also note though that if you've already worked with your license in India, then the GMC might consider that as postgraduate clinical experience. So it's good to keep note of that. I hope that answers your question. So for the next question, do I need to prepare any CV for the UKFP? If yes, then what kind of CV should I prepare? So when applying to the UK Foundation program, you don't need to prepare a CV like with other job applications. The UKFP application doesn't follow the traditional CV and interview kind of process. To get into the UK Foundation program, you'll have to apply through an online portal called Oriel. Through Oriel, you'll be asked to upload things like your primary medical qualification, your evidence of English, and your right to work, which are some of the baseline requirements that you need to apply for the UKFP. So for extra points, you can upload your other degrees such as your bachelor's degree or your PhD or even a publication if you have one. Before you're able to upload your degrees though, these do need to be verified by a third-party organization. You can find a list of these organizations in the UKFP applicant guidance. So after you've uploaded all of this, you get scored based on your decile ranking in medical school and your score in the SJT, plus any of the extra points that I mentioned earlier with your extra degrees, publications, etc. All of these put together will be your EPM. So based on your EPM, you will then be ranked against other applicants and then allocated certain slots based on your preferences. If you are applying to the standalone FY2 program or the academic foundation program, then there will be an interview process, but I believe the application overall is still through Oriel. Now we move on to the next question. Hi there, how should I prepare for PLAB? What sources should I use? And what is the best place for further studies, such as USMLE or PLAB? So I recently released a video on how I studied for PLAB 1, including my PLAB 1 tips and tricks. You can check that out in the link below. In the video, I mentioned that I used online question banks, with my favorite being Plabable. You can also sign up for Plabable's free and paid webinars so that you can understand topics on a deeper level. By joining these webinars, you can also meet other people who are reviewing for PLAB. For your last question about whether the US or the UK is better for further studies, I'm afraid I can't really give you a good answer because I've not looked into practicing in the US myself. It was a personal preference for me because I wanted to work more in a public healthcare setting. If you're thinking about either going for the US or the UK, there are a few things that you should consider. So one of them is the type of healthcare system, the salary you'll have, the work culture, and even the application process itself. At the end of the day, deciding between the US and the UK will depend on your goals in your career as well as the kind of environment that you like working in. So for the next question, is it very difficult for an IMG to match into the UKFP? I mean, is it highly competitive? So this is a tough question to answer. To make a long answer short, it is competitive, but it's much easier for IMGs to apply now than it was before. Before I answer the question in full, I need to explain how the UKFP recruitment works. UK medical graduates will be nominated by their school to be part of the foundation program. If you're a non-UK graduate, you will most likely have to apply through the eligibility office. This office will screen you and will see if you have a medical degree back home or if you have right to work. Once you've uploaded all of the requirements, the UKFP will then rank you based on your score in the SJT and your decile ranking in medical school, and then the applicants will be matched to their preferred deaneries accordingly. Once that happens, you will either end up on the primary list or the reserved list. So the primary list essentially is everyone who gets their slots first, and the reserved list is everyone who's waiting for a slot, which may suddenly open up due to people backing out or with Health Education England opening a new one. So when I applied to the UKFP in 2020, there were still stricter right-to-work requirements for the applicants, making this not ideal for IMGs to apply. Basically, if you were an IMG without right to work in the UK, regardless of your SJT score and regardless of your decile ranking, you would be placed on the reserved list, so that everyone with right to work would be on the primary list. This would have put IMGs at a disadvantage. However, starting from the UKFP 2021 recruitment, this has changed. IMGs are now placed on the primary list along with the rest of the UK graduates. Once an IMG was allocated a slot, depending on their immigration circumstances, they would then be offered a certificate of sponsorship for a work visa. Everyone else who did not get a slot will be placed on the reserved list. So now it's much easier for IMGs to get into the UKFP than it was before. The UKFP used to release statistics on how many people applying through the eligibility office got onto the primary list, as well as how many stayed on the reserved list. Unfortunately, I can't seem to find this document on their website for the UKFP 2021. What they did release was a summary statement of those who were allocated a slot. So I took this from the UKFP 2021 allocation update in May. As you can see, at the end of the process, over 7,000 slots were filled and 264 were left on the reserve list. That's 154 UK nominees and 110 eligibility office applicants. I believe this is around the expected number that you would see on the reserve list anyway. However, given that it's now easier for IMGs to apply, you might expect even more applicants next year. So like I said, it might still be competitive, but IMGs are definitely at more of an advantage now than they were before. Sorry, I know my answer sounded really technical. Sometimes I don't like talking about it too much because there's so much going on all at once and it's really hard to explain sometimes. But it must be done. Believe me, if reading it is nakakaloka din siyang pag-usapan. But hopefully that simplified a few things. Let's move on to the next question. So during the foundation, should I write for PLAB or before that? Because PLAB 2 requires an internship, right? I'm so sorry to bother, but I'm really in need of help. That's why I messaged you. I'm hopefully waiting for your reply. Oh, you guys are so cute. It's never a bother when you guys message me, and I always appreciate the questions. The whole point of this channel is to help people find their way through the application process, so I'm always happy to receive your messages. Anyway, to answer your first question, in order to apply to the foundation program, you need to have already passed or be on your way to passing PLAB 1 and PLAB 2. When I submitted my UKFP eligibility application, I had already done my IELTS exam but had still yet to book my PLAB exam. I think I booked it around 2 weeks after I submitted my eligibility application. Then the UKFP got back to me and said I was eligible with conditions. The conditions being that I had to pass PLAB 1 and PLAB 2 to hold my spot in the UKFP. If I ended up not passing the PLAB, then they would have removed me from the UKFP ranking. The nature of how the UKFP application works means that you can take all of your required exams while waiting for the final application for the UKFP. And as for your second question, no, you do not need to take an internship in order to take PLAB 2. The only prerequisite for taking PLAB 2, I believe, is to have a valid IELTS and to have passed PLAB 1. I hope that answers your question. So the next question says, Hi Mishka, could you suggest some good material for IELTS that you use and found useful? I'm going to apply for the UKFP in 2023 and planning to take IELTS in February 2022. Could you please help? So funnily enough, I've also just recently posted a video about my IELTS tips. You can check out that video for a more in-depth discussion on how I reviewed for IELTS, and you can find that in the link below. There are honestly so many resources for IELTS, it's hard to name them all. But my favorite, especially for writing skills, is Magoosh, which is a YouTube channel but also a company that tutors people in preparing for IELTS and OET. For listening skills, there's also a YouTube channel called IELTS Listening Test, and the link for that you can find that below in the description. I highly recommend that as well. For reading and need speaking skills, I would suggest going to the British Council websites or the IELTS website itself for some practice tests there. I think that going to the IELTS website is probably the best option as well, because this would be the closest to the examination itself. And for our last question, is it possible for IMGs to become surgeons in the UK? I heard that the competition is high. So the answer is yes, it's absolutely possible for IMGs to become surgeons here in the UK. You are right though in saying that it is really competitive, but when you think about it, any of the specialties that you want to apply to here in the UK are going to be competitive, especially surgical ones. I would suggest looking through HEE's specialty training website, and I'll be putting the link to that in the description below. On this website, this is where they upload the person specifications for core surgical training as well as other specialties. I do think though that you will most likely benefit from taking a trust grade job in a general surgery department first, before directly applying for a surgical training job from abroad, because at least by taking a trust grade job, you have time to build your portfolio to then apply for the specialty. I'm currently working in general surgery, and literally all of the other doctors that are working on my level are from another country, and they're also building their portfolio so that they can apply for core surgical training next year. Having foreign doctors come to the UK for specialty training is really common, and once you get here, you're highly likely going to find an IMG that's going through the same thing you are. You have to remember that the application process doesn't discriminate between IMGs and locally trained doctors. The only advantage that UK graduates may have over you is that they may have a little bit more familiarity with how the NHS works, but that's nothing that you can't fix with working in the UK for a few months. So I think we'll stop there for now. Thank you guys so much for sending in your questions. There were a few more questions left in my inbox and in the comments, but I wanted to avoid making this video too long so that you guys can at least process everything that I'm saying. It is a lot of information, I'm sorry. I mentioned earlier that the foundation program is really technical, and it is hard to explain sometimes, but that's why I made this channel in the first place. It's to try and simplify the most technical bits of the process so that we can all sail smoothly through our applications. So thank you guys for watching. I've really enjoyed reading through your questions and comments. If you do have any further questions, feel free to leave a comment below, or feel free to send me a DM on my Instagram at mishkamos. Also, let me know what kind of content you want to see on my next videos. You can also like this video because we love to be liked, and don't forget to subscribe so that you can be updated on when I post next. Thanks again for watching. See ya!